I want you to close your eyes for a second. Well, don't close them if you're driving, obviously. But just picture this.
Okay.
It's a Saturday afternoon. The sun is shining. You're cruising through a neighborhood. Maybe it's that one specific street you've been stalking on Zillow for the last 3 months.
We've all been there.
You turn the corner, and there it is, staked right into the perfectly manicured grass. The sign.
The for sale sign.
The colonial post, the hanging placard, maybe a little coming soon writer on top. It's so iconic. It is practically a piece of American pop art at this point.
It really is. It's the universal symbol of the housing market. It signals transition, change.
Right. And when I see that sign, I have this like Pavlovian response.
Yeah.
I instantly imagine walking through the front door, judging the wallpaper, smelling that weird vanilla cookie scent that's obviously fake.
The fake cookie smell, yes. A classic trick of the trade.
But mostly, I think of the person standing inside that door, the gatekeeper.
The one holding the keys.
The real estate agent. And I'll be totally honest with you, before we started prepping for this deep dive, my understanding of that person's job was pretty two-dimensional.
How so?
I see them as the person who unlocks the door, points at the granite countertops, says open concept 5 times, and then, collects a massive check.
That is the surface level view, yes. And it's the view most people have until they are actually deep in the trenches of a transaction and things start to get complicated.
But looking at this stack of research you've pulled together, you've got articles, legal statutes from Florida, economic theories, I'm realizing I have been fundamentally misunderstanding who this person is. Even just the words I use agent, broker, and realtor, like they're synonyms. I use them interchangeably.
You and about 95% of the population, it's completely normal.
But they are not synonyms, are they?
Not even close. Using agent and broker interchangeably is a bit like confusing a nurse practitioner with the chief of surgery. They're both in medicine, they both might wear scrubs, but the liability, the education, and what they are legally allowed to do are vastly, vastly different.
And that's really what we're doing today. We are going to deconstruct the machinery behind that for sale sign. We aren't just talking about curb appeal and staging. We are talking about the legal definitions that determine if that person is your loyal defender or just a neutral referee.
And we are going to talk about money, obviously, that massive 6% commission and where it actually goes. Who gets a piece of that pie?
And we have to talk about the Freakonomics stuff. I saw that in the notes and my jaw just hit the floor. The idea that the person you hire to get you the most money for your house might actually be incentivized to sell it for less money.
It's a very controversial theory, but the math behind it is, well, it's compelling. We will definitely get into that. It's a real mind bender.
So if you're listening, strap in. We're looking at the hierarchy, the hustle, and the hidden conflicts of the real estate industry. Let's start with the basics, though. I really want to clear up this vocabulary mess. Agent versus broker versus realtor. Who is who? Who's the boss?
Okay, let's build this from the ground up. The base level of the pyramid, the entry point, is the real estate agent.
Okay.
And in many states, the legal term on the actual license isn't even agent, it's real estate salesperson.
Salesperson. Huh. That feels a little less prestigious than agent, a little more like a used car lot.
It's descriptive, though, and that's the point. This is an individual who has passed a state licensing exam. They've done the required course hours, which varies a lot by state, but let's say it's roughly 60 to 90 hours of education.
Okay, so a couple of weeks of classes.
Right. And once they pass that test, they are licensed to negotiate sales agreements and handle all the associated documentation.
So they can sell houses.
They can, but, and this is the huge, huge caveat that almost everyone misses, they generally cannot do it alone.
What do you mean by that? If I go out and get my license today, I can't just print some business cards and start selling million-dollar homes.
You can print the cards, absolutely, but you cannot legally collect a commission or sign a listing agreement in your own name. A salesperson must work under the supervision of a licensed broker.
So they have to have a chaperone, essentially.
Effectively, yes. That's a great way to put it. Think of it like a big law firm. You have the senior partners, those are the brokers.
Okay.
And then you have all the associates, those are the agents or salespersons.
And the associates are doing the day-to-day work.
Exactly. They do a lot of the legwork, they meet with the clients, they draft the documents, they host the open houses, but they are operating under the legal and financial umbrella of that partner of the broker.
Because the partner of the broker is the one with the liability insurance and the legal responsibility if something goes wrong.
Precisely. The broker is the boss in this hierarchy. And to become a broker, the bar is so much higher. You usually need verifiable years of experience working as a salesperson first. You can't just jump straight to broker in most places.
You have to put in your time.
You have to put in your time, and then you have to take significantly more advanced coursework covering things like agency law, property management, contracts, finance. And then, at the end of all that, you have to pass a much, much harder state exam.
So the broker is the actual legal entity that owns the listing then?
Technically, yes. When you, as a homeowner, sign a listing agreement to sell your house, you might be sitting at your kitchen table with Sarah the agent. But if you look at the top of that contract, you are actually entering into an agreement with XYZ Brokerage. Sarah is just the authorized representative of that brokerage.
I like the music industry analogy I saw in the notes. I think that really helped me visualize it.
Right. Think of the agent as the rock star or the musician. They have the talent, they have the fans, they're the ones on stage performing, they're the face of the operation.
But the broker,
The broker is the record label.
they hold the contracts.
They hold the contracts, they handle all the compliance, they take on the legal risk, and this is the crucial part, they process the money. The check at the end of the deal is almost always made out to the brokerage, not directly to the agent.
Ah.
Then the broker takes their cut, their split, and pays the agent what's left over.
Okay, so that clarifies agent and broker. That we have the talent and the label. Where in the world does Realtor fit into this? Because I see that big R logo everywhere. Is that just a super broker or something?
This is probably the single biggest misconception in the entire industry.
Okay.
Realtor is not a job description. It is not a license level. It is a trademark.
Wait, what? It's a brand?
Yeah.
Like Kleenex or Xerox?
Exactly like Kleenex. Realtor, with a capital R, is a registered trademark that refers specifically to members of the National Association of Realtors, or NAR here in the U.S.,
Or CREA in Canada, I saw.
or the Canadian Real Estate Association. Correct. But the
Wow.
point is, it's a membership in a private trade association.
So let me get this straight. You can be a fully licensed real estate agent, legally able to sell a house, but not be a realtor.
Absolutely. There are hundreds of thousands of licensed agents and brokers who are not realtors. To become a realtor, you have to join the association, you pay annual dues, and you have to agree to abide by their specific code of ethics, which in some cases is stricter than state law.
But the public, I mean. I use the word realtor to mean anyone who sells houses.
We all do. We say, I need to call my realtor. The NR has done an absolutely incredible job with their branding. They have spent millions and millions of dollars over decades to make that word synonymous with the profession in the public's mind.
Why legally?
Legally, the state doesn't give you a realtor license. The state licensing board gives you a real estate salesperson license or a real estate broker license. The realtor designation is an add-on, a professional affiliation.
So if I hire someone who isn't a realtor, am I getting a worse agent? Is there a tangible difference for me as a consumer?
Not necessarily. The state license is the same. The legal ability to sell the house is identical. The primary difference is really about that membership, access to certain data tools that the NAR controls, and that specific code of ethics. But from a pure, can they legally help me buy or sell my house perspective, the state license is what matters.
Okay. I want to zoom out for just a second. We've been talking about the U.S. structure this whole time. I know we have listeners all over the world. Is this broker-agent split a universal thing? Like, is it the same in the UK, for example?
It is actually quite different, and the difference really highlights what American agents actually do. In the UK, they are called estate agents.
Sounds a little fancier.
It does sound fancier, but their role is arguably much more limited. In the UK, the estate agent is primarily a marketer.
What marketer?
Yes, their job is to value the property, take the nice photos, write the description, put the listing in their shop window and online, and find a willing buyer. But once an offer is accepted, their job is mostly done. They step back.
Who does all the paperwork then? The contract, the closing?
The lawyers, or solicitors and conveyancers, as they call them. In the U.S., your real estate agent is the one filling out the 20-page purchase contract. They are checking boxes about financing contingencies and inspection timelines.
Right.
In the U.K., the agents generally don't touch the legal transfer documents. That is all handled exclusively by the solicitors for the buyer and the seller.
So in the U.S., the agent is kind of a hybrid, like a marketer/amateur lawyer.
Amateur lawyer might get us in trouble with the Bar Association, but functionally,
Yeah.
yes, that's a pretty good description. They are filling out legally binding contracts. That is why the education on contract law and the broker supervision are so critical here.
And in the UK.
In the UK, because the lawyers handle all the heavy legal lifting,
Yeah.
the barrier to entry to become an estate agent has historically been much lower. Sometimes no specific license was required at all, depending on the specific time period and regulation changes. It's more of a pure sales and marketing job.
That probably explains why the commission structures are so different too, which I know we'll get to. But speaking of lawyers, there was this fascinating loophole you mentioned in the notes about California.
Oh, right, the attorney loophole.
Yeah. So if I'm a licensed attorney in California, can I just wake up one day and decide to be a real estate broker and manage a whole office of agents?
Pretty much. In states like California, if you are a licensed attorney in good standing with the state bar, you can skip all the prerequisite coursework and the 2 years of salesperson experience that everyone else needs.
You just bypass the whole system.
You can just walk in, sit for the broker exam, and if you pass, boom, you are a real estate broker. You can open your own firm the next day.
It seems, I don't know, almost unfair to the people who spent years selling houses to earn that spot.
Well, the logic from the state's perspective is that law school puts you through the ringer on contracts, agency law, property law, and fiduciary duty. The state basically assumes that if you can pass the bar exam, you probably have a solid enough grasp of a purchase agreement.
But knowing contract law and knowing how to price a bungalow in a rapidly shifting market are two very, very different skills.
They absolutely are, which is why just because a lawyer can do it doesn't mean they should. We joked about the lawyer trying to bake cookies for an open house. That's not their core competency. But legally, the state gives them the keys to the castle.
Okay, so we know who the players are. We have the agent, who is really a salesperson.
Yeah.
We have the broker, who is the boss. And we have the realtor, which is the brand.
A great summary.
Now let's talk about the thing that everyone actually stresses about. The money.
The commission.
It is the elephant in every room, every negotiation. In the U.S., the standard has historically been, and still largely is, somewhere around 5 to 6% of the final sale price.
Correct. That's the typical range you'll see.
I want to just contextualize that for a minute. If I'm selling a house for $500,000, which, in some markets gets you a mansion and others gets you a studio apartment, but let's use $500,000. 6% of that is $30,000.
It is a massive check. For most people, it's the single largest fee they will ever pay for any service in their entire lives.
And my immediate knee-jerk reaction is, are you kidding me? $30,000. All you did was list it on the internet and host 2 open houses where you ate my snacks.
I hear that frustration. I really do. And it's a valid feeling. But we do need to break down where that $30,000 actually goes, because the agent standing in your kitchen isn't just pocketing 30 grand.
Okay, walk me through the math. Let's follow the money.
Okay, so you pay $30,000 at closing. Typically, that gets split right down the middle immediately. Half goes to the listing side, that's the brokerage representing you, seller, and half goes to the buying side, the brokerage who brought the buyer.
Okay, so my agent's brokerage is now down to $15,000.
Right. But remember, the agent works for a broker, the record label. The broker has to get paid. They take a cut to pay for the office, the insurance, the marketing, the brand, the legal support. That split varies wildly, but let's be generous and say it's a 70-30 split. The agent keeps 70%.
So now we are down to what, roughly $10,500?
Exactly. And out of that $10,500, the agent now has to pay for all their business expenses. The professional photography, maybe some staging, the marketing flyers, the signs, the lockbox, gas money, their own health insurance, their licensing fees, and of course, self-employment taxes.
Okay. I'm starting to feel a tiny, tiny bit of sympathy. But it's still a lot of money for a transaction that might only take a few weeks from start to finish.
It absolutely is. But here is the economic justification you'll always hear from the industry. It's a contingency fee.
Meaning they only get paid if the deal actually works.
Exactly. An agent might work with a buyer for 6 months, show them 50 different houses, write 10 offers that get rejected in bidding war, and spend hundreds of hours and hundreds of dollars on gas. If that buyer then gets frustrated and decides to just sign a new lease on an apartment instead,
The agent gets nothing.
zero. $0 for 6 months of work.
So the high fees on the deals that do close are essentially subsidizing all the time and effort they put into the deals that fall apart.
Precisely. It's a risk premium. You're paying for the successful outcome, not the hours worked. But, and this is a huge but, there is a legal technicality about when that money is technically earned that almost nobody knows about. It's a common law principle called the ready, willing, and able rule.
This sounded really scary when I read it in the notes. Break this down for me.
Okay. Most people assume, quite logically, I pay the commission when the house sells. meaning when the keys are exchanged and the title transfers.
Right. No sale, no money. That's the deal.
In practice, that is usually true. Most listing agreements are written that way now, but under common law in many states, a broker has technically earned their commission the moment they bring you a buyer who is ready, willing, and able.
Define those three terms for me.
Ready means they want to buy now. Willing means they agree to your price and all your terms in the listing. Able means they have the cash or a firm mortgage approval to actually complete the purchase.
Okay, so let's play out a nightmare scenario here. I hire an agent. They bring me a fantastic buyer. Full asking price, all cash offer. The buyer's perfect on paper.
The dream scenario.
But then I look out in my backyard and I get emotional. I think, you know what? I can't leave this place. My kids grew up here. And I tell my agent, I'm sorry, pull it off the market. I've changed my mind. I'm not selling.
In that very specific scenario, under the strict letter of the law, you could still owe the broker that full $30,000 commission.
Even though I kept my house.
Yes. Because the broker did the job you hired them to do. You hired them to find a buyer, they found the buyer. The fact that the transaction didn't close because of your choice, your seller's remorse, doesn't void the work they performed.
That is absolutely terrifying. Has that actually happened? Do brokers really sue their former clients for that?
It does happen. It's rare because suing your clients is obviously terrible for business and your reputation. Usually, they'll just walk away angry and say, "Don't ever call me again." But legally, they often have a claim. It really highlights that the service isn't moving you out. The service you're paying for is finding the match.
Wow. That completely changes how I view that listing contract.
Mhm.
It's a matchmaking fee.
At its core, yes. Now, because there is so much money floating around in these commissions, there's a lot of federal regulation to try and keep things clean. We have to touch on RESPA.
A RESPA, the Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act. Sounds very dry, but I gather it's incredibly important.
It's the reason your agent can't say, "Hey, you should use this mortgage guy, he's the best," and then secretly get a $500 envelope of cash from that mortgage guy later that week.
So kickbacks?
Right. Before RESPA was enacted, the industry was apparently rife with kickbacks and undisclosed referral fees. Agents would steer clients to specific, sometimes more expensive lenders or title insurance companies just to get a cut of the action.
And RESPA made that illegal.
It made it illegal. It ensures that if an agent recommends a service provider, they are theoretically doing it because it's a good service for you, the consumer, not because they're on that provider's secret payroll. It's about transparency.
Okay, so illegal kickbacks are out. But that doesn't mean the agent's incentives are perfectly pure. And this brings us to the really juicy part of this whole thing, the Freakonomics argument.
Stephen Levitt, 2005. He really, as you said, threw a grenade into the real estate world with this one chapter.
I remember when this came out, it completely shattered the core idea that the agent is your partner. Because logically, I always thought, my agent gets a percentage. If I sell my house for more money, they make more money. So we both want the highest possible price. We are on the same team.
That is the fundamental assumption that the entire industry is built on. Our interests are aligned.
But Levitt said that's not quite right.
He pointed out that while the direction of the incentive is the same, you both want more money, the magnitude of that incentive is wildly different.
Show me the numbers on that.
Okay, let's go back to your $500,000 house. You are the seller. Your goal is to get the absolute top dollar. Let's say an offer comes in today for $500,000. It's a solid offer. But your agent thinks, if we wait another 2 weeks, do another open house, maybe we can squeeze out another $10,000 and get $510,000.
I would absolutely want to wait. $10,000 is a lot of money to me. That pays for my movers, some new furniture, maybe a family vacation. It's a huge deal.
For you, the seller, that $10,000 is massive. But now let's look at it from the agent's perspective. For them, what's the financial difference? That extra $10,000 at a 6% commission rate is $600 in total commission.
Okay.
But remember, that gets split with the other side. So the listing side's commission goes up by $300.
Right.
Then the broker takes their cut. So the agent, personally, might end up putting, maybe an extra $150, maybe $200 in their pocket.
So for the exact same amount of work, I get $10,000 and they get, let's say, $150.
Exactly. So Levitt poses the question, is it worth it for the agent to keep the file open, do more work, take on more stress, and risk the current deal falling apart, all for the price of a decent dinner out?
When you put it that way, absolutely not. They'd rather just close the deal today, take the sure thing, get their commission, and go find a new client to work with.
That is the core conflict. Levitt argues that agents are fundamentally incentivized to sell quickly, not necessarily for the highest possible price. Their incentive is turnover.
And he didn't just guess this, right? He actually had data to back this up.
That's what made it so powerful. He got his hands on a huge data set of thousands of real estate transactions in the Chicago area. And he did something very clever. He compared two sets of data: homes sold by agents for their clients and homes sold by agents when they were selling their own personal property.
Oh, that is brilliant. A perfect control group. What did he find?
He found that when agents sell their own houses, they behave exactly like you'd expect a seller to behave. They leave them on the market significantly longer, about 10 days longer on average, and they sell them for significantly more money, about 3% more.
Wow. So when it's their own $10,000 on the line, they hold out. When it's my $10,000, they're telling me, take the offer. It's a great market. Don't be greedy.
That is the powerful implication of this study. It suggests they are maximizing their own turnover rate and hourly wage, not your final profit margin.
So based on that, should we all just fire our agents and sell our houses ourselves? Is that the takeaway?
Well, hold on, because the research also shows the other side of the coin. A later study from 2008 looked at FSBOs, for sale by owners, and people who used these unbundled limited service listings. And it found that even with that built-in conflict of interest, people who used full-service brokers generally ended up with a higher net sale price than those who tried to go it alone or with limited help.
So the agent might push you to sell a little too fast, but they are still way better at marketing and negotiating than I am.
Right. The conclusion is that an imperfect expert is usually better than a complete amateur. The agent gets the home on the MLS, which is critical for exposure. They know how to stage it. They know how to handle the flood of calls. They know how to negotiate the inspection repair requests.
So I might lose out on that last 3% of value because of their incentive to sell fast.
But without them, you might have lost 10 or 15% because you take photos with your iPhone in the dark and didn't know how to price it correctly in the first place.
That's a fair balance. It's not that agents are evil, it's just that the economic structure itself favors volume over maximum value for them.
Exactly. It's a systemic issue, not necessarily a personal moral failing of your specific agent. It's just math.
Now, speaking of moral failings and legal duties, this is the part of the research that honestly confused me the most, and it's maybe the most important. We need to talk about agency.
This is the legal maze.
I always just assume that if I call an agent to help me buy a house, they work for me. They're on my side. Like a lawyer works for a client. But the history of this is, it's weird.
It is bizarre. If we go back in time, before the consumer rights movements of the 1990s, really, before the mid-60s, even real estate was an entirely seller-centric world.
Okay. What does that mean?
The multiple listing service, the MLS, was created so that brokers could cooperate and share their listings with each other, a great innovation. But legally, everyone involved in the transaction was considered a sub-agent of the seller.
Wait a second. So if I was a buyer in, say, 1980, and I found an agent who I liked, and she was driving me around in her car, showing me houses.
That agent who you thought was your agent was technically, legally working for the seller of whatever house you are currently looking at.
You're kidding me, but I'm in the car with them. I'm telling them my whole life story, my financial situation. I'm saying, I love this house. I'd pay anything for it. I have an extra $50,000 in the bank just in case.
And legally, that agent had a fiduciary duty to go tell the seller, hey, good news. This guy has an extra $50K in the bank and he's desperate. Don't take his first offer.
That is insane. I'm spilling my guts to a double agent.
It was a huge, huge problem. Buyers didn't understand it at all. They thought the nice person driving the sedan was their friend and confidant. But legally, all loyalty flowed to the seller because at the end of the day, that's where the commission was coming from.
So how did we fix this mess? Because I assume that's not the case anymore. It can't be.
It evolved slowly. First, consumer groups pushed for the creation of buyer's agency. States started passing laws saying, okay, you can explicitly represent the buyer and have a fiduciary duty to them. That was a massive step forward. You sign a contract that says, you are my agent, you work for me, the buyer.
Okay, so now I have my champion and the seller has their champion. It's a duel at dawn, much clearer.
In theory, yes. But then you immediately run into the dual agency problem. What happens if you, the buyer, want to buy a house that is listed by my brokerage, maybe even by me personally?
Then you end up representing both sides.
That is dual agency, and it is a legal and ethical minefield. How can I possibly get the highest price for the seller, A&D, the lowest price for the buyer at the same time? I can't. It's logically impossible to serve two masters.
It's like a lawyer trying to represent both the husband and the wife in a divorce. It just can't work.
Exactly. Some states still allow it with disclosure, but it's very risky. So some states, led by Florida and Colorado in the 90s, came up with a really radical solution. They basically said, let's stop pretending.
Stop pretending what?
Stop pretending you are a loyal fiduciary advocate in most cases. They created a new default role called the transaction broker.
Transaction broker. It sounds very bureaucratic and neutral.
It is. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
In Florida, for example, this is now the default relationship. By law, it is presumed that all licensees are transaction brokers unless you sign a very specific piece of paper to establish a single agent relationship.
Whoa. So if I call an agent in Florida, by default, they are not my advocate.
Correct. By default, they are not your advocate.
Explain the difference. What does a traditional advocate do versus what this new transaction broker does?
Okay, let's use a concrete scenario. You are buying a house. You do an inspection. The inspector finds evidence of mold in the attic.
Gross. Okay, not good.
If your agent is a single agent, a traditional fiduciary advocate, their job is to go to war for you. They pull you aside and say, this is unacceptable. This is our leverage. We are going to demand they professionally remediate it, or we are going to demand they drop the price by $20,000. Do not tell them you still want the house. Act like you are ready to walk away. They are coaching you to win the negotiation.
I like that agent. I want that agent on my team.
Right. Now let's picture the same scenario with a transaction broker. They are a neutral facilitator. They find the mold. Their job is to facilitate the deal, not to advantage one side. They receive the inspection report. They hand it to you, and they hand it to the seller's side. They say, here is the mold report. The parties need to come to an agreement.
And that's it.
They cannot strategize against the seller. They cannot advise you to push harder or tell you the seller is desperate. They'll probably take a lower price. They are essentially a referee making sure the paperwork is correct and the deadlines are met.
That is a massive, massive difference. One is your coach, your gladiator. The other is a glorified courier.
Yes. And most people in states like Florida and Colorado have no idea this fundamental shift happened. They still think the agent driving them around is their coach, but legally, that agent's primary duty is to the deal, not to them.
So why did states do this? Was it just to avoid lawsuits over dual agency?
That was the primary driver, yes.
Yep.
It effectively eliminates the conflict of interest in dual agency because the agent never promised undivided loyalty in the first place. Their only promise is honesty and fair dealing to both sides. It greases the wheels of the transaction, but it absolutely strips away the advocacy component.
This brings up a huge question for me then. If the agent is just a referee, if they're just handling paperwork and facilitating communication, why are we still paying them a 6% commission?
That is the multi-billion-dollar question that the industry is grappling with right now. If I'm just a facilitator, am I providing $30,000 worth of value on a $500,000 home?
And this leads us perfectly into the alternatives, because a lot of people are starting to ask that very question.
They are, and technology has been the great enabler here. The biggest and most common alternative is the flat fee listing.
How does that work? Is it as simple as it sounds?
It's pretty straightforward. You find a licensed broker who offers this service. You pay them a small flat fee up front, say $500. And in exchange, all they do is take your property data and photos and put your house into the multiple listing service.
So their only job is to get me onto Zillow and Redfin and all the other sites that pull from the MLS.
Exactly, because as an individual, you can't get on the MLS. You need a licensed broker to do it. So you're essentially paying a limited service broker to rent their license and their MLS access for a day.
And then what? Who answers the phone when a buyer wants to see the house?
You do. Your name and your phone number go right on the listing as the point of contact. Agents with buyers will call you directly. Unrepresented buyers will call you directly.
And I have to show the house myself.
You host your own open house. You schedule all the private showings. You negotiate the price. You handle the awkwardness of telling someone their lowball offer is insulting.
I can see why people are willing to pay the 6%. Negotiation is deeply uncomfortable for most people.
It is. And you're hitting on a key, often overlooked value of an agent. They are an emotional buffer.
Explain that.
When a buyer walks into your home that you've lovingly decorated and says, wow, this kitchen is hideous, I'm going to have to gut this whole thing, and you are the owner standing right there, you get offended, you get defensive. You might kill the whole deal out of pure spite.
True. My grandmother picked out those tiles. Get out of my house.
Exactly. A good agent absorbs that emotional blow. They translate The kitchen is hideous into the unemotional negotiating point of the buyer is looking for a modernization credit in the price. They keep the emotion out of the transaction. When you do a flat fee listing or a full FSBO, you lose that critical buffer.
What about the legal risk of doing it yourself? I imagine that's pretty high.
It's significant. Real estate contracts are not napkin doodles. In most states, there are dozens of pages of mandatory disclosures: lead paint, flood zones, property defects, HOA documents. If you, as a DIY seller, forget to check a box or fail to disclose that the basement leaks every time it rains hard, you can be sued for fraud years after you've sold the house.
So you save the commission on the front end, but you take on all the liability on the back end.
Correct. And that's why many people who start out trying to sell their homes themselves eventually give up and hire an agent. They realize it's a full-time job and a legal minefield they are not equipped to navigate.
Now, I want to pivot briefly to the people themselves. We've talked about the agent as a concept, but who are these people? Is it hard to become one?
This is a point of major contention within the industry itself. The barrier to entry in terms of upfront education and cost is relatively low compared to other high-income professions like being a doctor or a lawyer.
You don't need a college degree?
In most states, no. You need to be 18, you need to pass the state-mandated course and exam, and you need to have a reasonably clean criminal background check.
But it's not just pass the test once and you're done for life, right? I saw notes about ongoing education.
No, thankfully. There is continuing education, or CE, required to maintain your license. It varies by state, but let's take California as an example again. In California, you have to complete 45 hours of approved education every 4 years to renew your license.
What are they learning in those classes? Is it about how to sell better?
No, not really. The state doesn't care if you know how to close a deal. The state cares about consumer protection. The mandatory courses are almost always on topics like ethics, fair housing law, and trust fund handling.
Trust funds. What does that mean in this context?
It means handling other people's money. When a buyer gives you an earnest money deposit check for $10,000, there are incredibly strict rules about where that money has to go. It has to go into a special, protected trust account.
You can't just put it in your personal wallet or your business checking account.
Absolutely not. Mixing that client money with your own money, a practice called commingling, is the single fastest way to lose your license and potentially face criminal charges. So the CE is constantly drilling these rules into them.
So the education is really all about protecting the public from harm.
Exactly. And fair housing is another huge component, constantly training and testing agents to prevent discrimination, ensuring agents aren't illegally steering people into or away from certain neighborhoods based on their race, religion, or family status.
Which is a whole other dark history of the real estate industry we could do a deep dive on another day.
A very deep and very dark history, yes.
I want to mention one specific figure that was in the notes, just to show the other end of the spectrum. We talked about the $500 flat fee broker, which seems very transactional. But then there's someone like Alice Mason.
The real estate queen of New York City.
She passed away recently, but she was legendary. From what I read, she wasn't just selling apartments, she was curating buildings. She was a social architect.
That's the perfect way to describe it. She famously threw these lavish dinner parties where she would strategically seat her clients next to the board members of the exclusive co-op buildings they wanted to get into.
So it wasn't about the apartment. It was about getting past the board interview.
She understood that at the highest end of the market, real estate isn't about 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. It's about social admission. It's about power and access. And she was the ultimate gatekeeper.
It just really shows the incredible range of this profession. On one end, you have a data entry task for $500. On the other end, you have a socialite power broker moving hundreds of millions of dollars of equity over cocktails.
And the 6% commission model is often applied to both, which is why the industry is so fascinating and so heavily criticized. The value provided can vary so dramatically.
So we have covered a ton of ground here. We've gone from the lawn sign to the courtroom, from the 6% commission to the $150 incentive problem. If we boil this all down for the listener, the person who might be thinking about buying or selling a house next year, what is the headline? What's the key takeaway?
I think the headline is, know who is sitting across the table from you.
Don't just assume.
Don't assume they are your friend. Don't assume they are your fiduciary advocate. Ask the question directly and ask to see it in writing. Are you my single agent representing only me with fiduciary duty, or are you a transaction broker?
And understand the economic incentives.
Yes. Understand that if they are pushing you to take an offer quickly, it might be genuinely good advice in a changing market, Or it might be the economics of their $150 raise talking. You have to be the CEO of your own transaction.
That's a great way to put it. The agent is a critical consultant, maybe your project manager, but you are the CEO. You make the final call.
Exactly. You are the one with the most at stake.
Here is my final thought, a little provocation to leave everyone with as we wrap up. We are seeing technology get better and better every single day. We have Zillow, we have Redfin, we have AI that can now draft legally sound contracts. And as we've discussed, we have this major legal shift in many states toward the transaction broker, the neutral referee.
Right. The de-emphasis on advocacy.
So if the agent is no longer legally required to fight for us, and if the computer can now find the house for us and even write the offer for us, are we moving toward a world where the real estate agent is just an extremely expensive administrative assistant?
Yeah.
Someone we pay $30,000 to unlock a door and manage a calendar.
That is the existential question that keeps brokerage CEOs up at night. What is our value in a world of AI and facilitators?
And if they aren't your gladiator, is that 6% fee structure that was designed in a pre-internet world of paper binders and driving around, is it still justified? Or is it a relic of a bygone era that is about to crumble under the weight of technology and new legal realities?
The market usually corrects major inefficiencies eventually. It just takes time for the disruption to take hold.
Something to think about the next time you drive past that for sale sign and smell the phantom vanilla cookies. Thanks for diving deep with us
It
today.
was a pleasure. Always fascinating.